please insert your military identification card," a sweet synthesized voice echoed. Tang Long, standing inside the narrow elliptical object, quickly inserted the card he had obtained into a magnetic card slot. Name: Tang Long. Age: 18. Gender: male. Education: high school. Assigned branch: infantry. As the data appeared on the computer screen, the synthesized voice resounded once again, preparing identity check. Tang Long stood still, his eyes wide open. At this moment, a beam of white light scanned him from head to toe. Facial features match, skeletal structure matches, blood type matches, DNA matches, pupils match. Identity confirmed. The computer made a few beeping sounds and then ejected the original card, while the synthesized voice spoke again. "Please report to Class 1, Platoon 1. Company 3, Battalion 23 of the 504th New Recruit Camp. Wishing you good luck in your military career." Tang Long quickly retrieved the card and a door appeared behind him. Outside the door, there was a long line of people waiting. "Damn it. Joining the army is such a hassle. If I had known, I wouldn't have come." Tang Long muttered discontentedly as he left the deployment room. Just as he stepped out, the person at the front of the queue immediately entered the deployment room, and the door closed again. Tang Long, who had just turned 18, had just graduated from high school this year. With his wealthy family background, he could have gone to college or worked in his father's company. But he didn't want to be a businessman. Instead, he wanted to be a soldier. He had ambitions since childhood, aspiring to become a marshal commanding the world's armies. He believed that to become a marshal, one must first become a general, and to become a general, one must start as a foot soldier. Although he had heard that enlisting after attending the National Defense University would immediately grant him the rank of second lieutenant, many times higher than his current private rank, it wasn't that Tang Long didn't want to. It was because his score in the college entrance examination placed him among the bottom 1,000 candidates out of millions in the Federation. Admission to the National Defense University was not something that money could buy, and his family would not agree to his military enlistment either, as his family lineage had been single child for generations. Speaking of which, there was an interesting story about his name. His name had been chosen by his grandfather before his parents got married. Both his grandfather and father were very confident that the next generation would definitely be male. It's unclear whether it was due to some ancient bloodline power, but he had indeed come into this world as a boy. Moreover, his father and mother had tried for 18 years without giving birth to another child. Let alone giving birth, they couldn't even conceive. When he grew older, he once asked his grandfather why he had chosen such a name for him. His proud grandfather told him that the name Tang represented a nation from an ancient human origin planet called Earth. The people of that nation had yellow skin, black hair, and black eyes. And Long represented the most powerful man in that country. Although that planet had disappeared, the achievements of uniting with other civilizations had been passed down through the thousands of years of the current cosmic era. Although his grandfather didn't explicitly state his expectations, the meaning behind the name Tang Long was deeply engraved in the mind of this sensible child. That was also one of the reasons why he wanted to join the military.so. This rebellious young man used his poor academic performance as an excuse to go on a trip during the summer vacation, and with the help of his adult ID and some travel expenses, he ran off to the Kira planet, which was nearly 10,000 light-years away from home, and enlisted without permission. Although there were other branches of the military that could be applied for, they either required a cultural knowledge exam or a physical fitness test. Tang Long, who was useless in both aspects, had no choice but to select the infantry branch, which only required adulthood and had no additional tests. Carrying his baggage and holding the magnetic card with his assignment order, Tang Long wandered around the deployment hall in a silly manner. The hall had several olive-shaped deployment rooms, each filled with newcomers like him who had just joined the military. These olive-shaped deployment rooms were artificial intelligence controlled and could automatically assign training in the appropriate new recruit camps based on your requests and test scores. Of course, in addition to the new recruits, the deployment hall also had soldiers wearing black-based silver-trimmed uniforms, guarding the area. Tang Long looked at those mighty soldiers with envy while searching for the entrance to the 504th new recruit camp, although these entrances were located in the vast hall. There were simply too many of them. Tang Long looked up at the numbers on each entrance, straining his neck almost to the point of breaking. After a long walk, he finally found the automatic entrance with 504 written on it. There were already a few groups of recruits ahead of him, but without hesitation, Tang Long stepped onto the moving platform. The automated floor immediately started carrying him forward. Tang Long spent nearly 10 minutes in this scenery-less passage, during which he glanced back and realized that no one else was following him. As for the few casually dressed guys in front, somehow the speed of the automated floor increased, causing them to gradually move farther away, shrinking from the size of a thumb to a mung bean, and finally disappearing. In the long passage, Tang Long was the only one left. After a few more minutes, Tang Long started to panic. Even though he told himself not to be afraid, the silent sense of solitude still plagued him. In the end, he desperately began to run forward. Although the automated floor continued to move rapidly, he felt that he could only sense its motion by running at a fast pace. After a while, Tang Long became exhausted. He crouched on the ground, panting like a dog. He hadn't engaged in much physical activity since middle school. Although he spent his days reading books and playing computer games, they were comic books and video games. Exhausted, he had long forgotten about the inexplicable sense of fear and only thought about the importance of resting. Suddenly, he noticed that the floor had stopped. Curiously, he looked up and realized he was crouching at the exit. When he stood up, he noticed a sign on the exit that read, "Total duration, 30 minutes, idiot." He harshly slapped his own head. It had taken him more than 20 minutes to reach the exit, and he felt unfairly judged. He couldn't believe he had run so hard out of fear. This was the longest he had run in the past 18 years. Stepping out of the exit, he found himself in a massive airport. Tang Long quickly inserted the magnetic card with his assignment order into the verification machine at the exit. Shortly after, a synthesized voice from the computer said, "Please proceed to Gate 23 to board the spacecraft." Retrieving his assignment order card, Tang Long headed towards the gate labeled 23. This time, it only took him 30 seconds to board the small spacecraft. He couldn't believe his eyes as he surveyed the vessel. It was a small spacecraft that could only accommodate 10 people. And the entire cabin had only him as the passenger. At that moment, a sweet voice from the spacecraft's speaker announced, "Prepare for takeoff. Please fasten your seatbelt." Tang Long quickly found a seat and buckled up. Through the window, he saw a massive spaceship taking off. What? Why is my spacecraft so small? Am I the only one going to the 23rd Regiment? What about those recruits I saw earlier? Could it be that they aren't from the 23rd Regiment? Tang Long felt that inexplicable sense of terror again and decided to talk to himself to reduce his fear. With a roar, Tang Long suddenly unfastened his seatbelt and lunged towards the control room of the spacecraft like a tiger. He wanted to find the captain and ask where they were headed. In reality, he just wanted someone to talk to because being alone was too terrifying. He pushed open the cabin door, which should have been locked. To his surprise, no one was inside. Tang Long was taken aback, realizing that such small spacecraft were usually computer-controlled and followed fixed flight paths. It was normal not to have a captain and not waste manpower. Due to this realization, Tang Long knew that the destination wasn't far away. So he comfortably sat in the cockpit without hesitation, enjoying the panoramic view of the universe. Tang Long couldn't help but feel delighted. Although he had ridden countless spacecraft before, he had never sat in the cockpit and gazed at space. This time, he was ecstatic. He had never imagined that he could enjoy the services of a private jet while serving in the military. In his excitement, Tang Long quickly forgot about his lonely feeling of fear. However, his excitement didn't last long as the synthesized voice from the computer returned, saying, "Please fasten your seatbelt and put on your safety helmet. The spacecraft is about to initiate a space jump." Tang Long let out a miserable scream. Space jump? No way! Can this small spacecraft even perform that function? Where's the 23rd Regiment, anyway? Space jumps were typically carried out by large spaceships, and small spacecraft couldn't withstand the tearing force during a space jump. Additionally, a minimum distance of 1,000 light-years was required for a space jump to occur, though screaming in agony. Tang Long swiftly fastened his seatbelt and then put on the helmet that automatically dropped from the ceiling. This helmet was designed to minimize the tearing force on the head during a space jump. Meanwhile, all the window screens would turn into informationless black, preventing any harm to the eyes. Once Tang Long was ready, his body started to tingle. He knew they had initiated the space jump. He began praying to all the deities of the known civilizations. He had never heard of a small spacecraft capable of space jumps. Riding the tiger's back, Tang Long could only implore the gods to ensure the success of the space jump. The space jump was brief, lasting only a few tens of seconds. Then, that voice echoed once again, "Space jump complete. We will arrive at the destination in 30 minutes." The helmet automatically detached and retracted. Tang Long curiously looked outside, taking in his surroundings. He found it strange that if they were supposed to reach their destination in 30 minutes, why couldn't he see any planets around? How could he, a soldier, encounter such inexplicable events? Tang Long could only sigh. Well, he would arrive in 30 minutes regardless. He fastened his seatbelt and closed his eyes to rest. Countdown, 10 seconds until landing. 10, 9, 8. Tang Long was awakened by the voice and quickly opened his eyes. He noticed a massive asteroid about a kilometer in front of the spacecraft, with a crack splitting it open. Through the gap, he could see lights, revealing that there was a small base inside the asteroid. So, this asteroid was the 23rd Regiment of the 504 new recruit camp. Since they were descending in a zero-gravity state, there was no pressure. Tang Long could already see the control tower through the screens. Strangely, although the control tower had its command lights on, there was no one inside. After the docking port connected, Tang Long couldn't wait and rushed out. Sure enough, there was not a single person in the entire control tower. After a moment of stunned silence, Tang Long felt an overwhelming sense of tranquility. Besides the sound of his own breathing, there was hardly any other noise. Fear once again gripped Tang Long, and he turned around, intending to run back to the spacecraft. However, the connecting port had detached, and the protective shield had separated him from the spacecraft. Soon after, the fuel port also disconnected, and the spacecraft began to slowly retreat, indicating it was returning automatically. Tang Long watched in a daze as the spacecraft left, and the gates closed, cutting off the view of space. Panic-stricken, he shouted, "Is anyone there? I am Private Tang Long. Reporting to the officer." He nervously walked onto the automated floor, shouting loudly while clutching his package, surveying his surroundings. After a while, with no response from anyone, Tang Long took a deep breath, preparing to shout even louder. Suddenly, a cold and indifferent voice came from behind him, saying, "Are you Tang Long?" Tang Long felt a glimmer of joy and quickly turned around, preparing to salute and shout, "Private Tang Long, reporting to the officer." However, instead of saying those words, he let out a horrifying scream, a scream filled with intense agony. Tang Long's legs went weak, and he collapsed to the ground, desperately trying to move backward. What did he see? A skeletal figure in military uniform. Tang Long had lost the ability to produce any sound. He desperately crawled towards the spot where the passage had been, only to realize that it had disappeared. He then remembered that the new recruit camp was an enclosed training facility. Just as Tang Long realized there was no escape route, and his panic was about to overcome him completely. The skeletal figure approached and grabbed hold of Tang Long's clothes. The bony skull pressed against Tang Long's forehead as the figure angrily exclaimed, "Are you Tang Long?" Terrified, Tang Long suddenly regained his senses. He noticed that the skeletal soldier's bones were made of metal, and at such close proximity, he could see the metal wires in the skeleton's neck and the small speaker inside its mouth. Tang Long realized that the horrifying skeletal soldier in front of him was, in fact, a robot. According to the story, there were no robot soldiers 1,000 years ago. Except for dangerous tasks and a small number of robots, the use of robots was not widespread in the entire universe. This was because 1,000 years ago, the robots created by humans suddenly gained intelligence and launched a war that nearly destroyed humanity. Fortunately, humanity saved itself with its intelligence. Although the use of robots was subsequently prohibited, some countries still manufactured robot soldiers. Several hundred years ago, the country that manufactured robot soldiers had their control systems sabotaged by a computer virus deployed by an enemy nation. This caused these robot soldiers to go berserk and ruthlessly destroy any living beings with thermal energy. Although the crisis was quickly suppressed, an entire planet was destroyed as a result. This incident solidified the belief in human society that intelligent robots were unstable and dangerous. Since then, the development of intelligent humanoid robots has been prohibited worldwide, and anyone who develops them is considered an enemy of humanity. Tang Long hadn't figured out how the 504th New Recruit Battalion, 23rd Regiment, had robots, but before he could understand, the robot threw him to the ground and angrily exclaimed, "Are you Tang Long?" With its glowing green mechanical eyes, it looked as if it wanted to devour Tang Long alive. Startled, Tang Long quickly stood up and shouted, "Private Tang Long reporting to the officer." The robot stood with its legs apart, hands behind its back, straightened its posture, and coldly replied, "I can't hear you." Tang Long was taken aback. But he had seen this on TV many times before. When a new recruit arrived, the drill instructor would pull this trick. So he took a deep breath and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Private Tang Long reporting to the officer." The robot seemed satisfied and extended its hand. Tang Long knew exactly what to do and quickly handed over the magnetic card with the assignment order. The robot casually accepted it, then straightened its legs and saluted with a crisp slap, saying, "I acknowledge your report." Tang Long breathed a sigh of relief. He was now officially a soldier. Seeing that he was dumbfounded, the robot sternly said, "Listen carefully. That's your room, and that's the mess hall. Training begins at 4 o'clock in the afternoon." It pointed to 2 doors that emerged from the wall. Then it turned and walked away. Tang Long watched the robot leave and suddenly saw a door appear on the wall where it had gone. As soon as he entered, it immediately returned to its original state. When Tang Long looked toward his own room, he realized the door was gone and hurriedly ran over, arriving there. The door suddenly appeared. Tang Long saw that the room was pitch black inside, hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and walked in. As soon as his foot stepped through the door, the room instantly lit up. Tang Long couldn't help but feel ecstatic when he saw the scene before him. The room was over 10 square meters, with a bed, a desk, a chair, and a wardrobe. There was even a small bathroom with complete toiletries. This was an officer's suite. "I didn't expect that robot instructor to be quite a decent person," Tang Long whistled as he opened the wardrobe. Inside, he found 3 sets of Federation military uniforms and 3 pairs of boots. In short, there were 3 sets of the standard military attire for soldiers. Although all of them were combat uniforms. Tang Long immediately tossed aside his package and anxiously took out 1 set of the military uniform to try on. After putting it on, he ran to the bathroom to look in the mirror and felt incredibly imposing. The uniform fit him perfectly because his personal data had detailed measurements, making everything so suitable. The only thing Tang Long felt was lacking was the silver chevron representing the rank of private on his shoulder. Lost in self-admiration, Tang Long suddenly felt hungry, so he hurriedly ran out. He arrived at the cafeteria next to his room, which was brightly lit but devoid of any people. Feeling a bit scared, Tang Long helped himself to a food container and a bottle of drink from the counter, then hastily ran back to his room. As he ate the synthetic food and let his mind wander, he couldn't help but think about how this base seemed to have only one living person, himself. What on earth was going on? How did he, as an infantryman, end up like this? Tang Long didn't realize he had made a huge mistake when choosing his military specialization. It was now the year 3432 in the universal calendar, and the infantry had long been abolished from the military. The wars in this era were fought between space battleships, and while there were still combat units for close-quarters combat and landing operations, they were called space troopers. So why did the infantry specialization still exist? It was because several hundred years ago, the 23rd Marshal of the Federation Army came from an infantry background. After becoming Marshal, he recognized that the infantry specialization should be phased out but couldn't bear to do so completely. Thus, when eliminating the infantry specialization, he left behind the only remaining infantry training camp in the entire army, which was the 23rd Regiment at that time. With the widespread use of robots, he used his authority to construct the 23rd Regiment's base in a remote location and left behind several robotic instructors. He knew that there would be no more recruits for the infantry in the future, and the base would eventually be forgotten. The purpose of his actions was simply to preserve a place of commemoration for the infantry specialization. However, he didn't expect that even after several hundred years since his death, the base would still be operational. It was mainly due to the fact that shortly after his passing, the military's operating systems were all replaced with intelligent computers. While humanity had eliminated humanoid intelligent robots, they couldn't bear to get rid of intelligent computers. After all, humans had become accustomed to the convenience these tools provided. The military's intelligent computers accessed the data from the original computer and incorporated the 23rd Regiment, the sole remaining infantry training base, into the system. Although no one had applied to join the base for a long time, the base's flight routes continued to be maintained. Some officers discovered the seemingly useless base and considered destroying it, but upon discovering the sentimental attachment of the 23rd Marshal, they were moved and decided to leave it be. They had no knowledge that the base's instructors were actually robots and assumed they were unfortunate instructors assigned there by the computer. The placement of robots in the base was a secret arrangement made by the 23rd Marshal. Of course, it was because of this arrangement that the established flight routes continued to be maintained. While there were no trainees, there were still instructors. However, after the officers who knew of the existence of the 23rd Regiment also passed away, the regiment gradually faded into oblivion. Since the base was self-sufficient, the Federation only needed to maintain the flight routes of the ships. Considering the massive budget of the Federation, these maintenance costs were just a drop in the ocean and posed no significant burden. Due to the lack of applicants, the ships on the flight routes were downsized to small 10-seat shuttles designed solely for transporting instructors. Tang Long, who felt useless after exploring all the other specializations, finally discovered the infantry specialization that had no requirements. He was momentarily delighted and forgot that it was the last option on the list. Thinking he had struck gold, while Tang Long was sound asleep, he was abruptly awakened by a bucket of ice-cold water splashed on him. He was about to curse loudly but stopped when he saw the robot instructor staring fiercely at him. He immediately suppressed his choice of words. "Good morning, sir." Tang Long promptly performed a less than satisfactory military salute. "You bastard. We agreed on training at 4 o'clock, and you dare to be 1 second late? Get out and run 10 laps around the training ground," the robot said with a menacing tone. Tang Long knew he was in trouble because robots were extremely sensitive to time, and he happened to be the most forgetful person when it came to keeping track of it. It seemed like he would be punished every day from now on. The robot, seeing Tang Long in a daze, walked up behind him and kicked him out of the room. With a cry of pain, Tang Long landed flat on his face in the hallway. As he was about to rub his sore bottom, Tang Long suddenly noticed a pair of boots in front of him. He looked up and was startled to see the robot instructor staring at him with an ominous tone, spewing out threatening words. "Hurry up and run, yes." Ah! Tang Long, who had gotten up, immediately noticed that there were 5 identical robot instructors standing in the training field. The robot instructor standing at the front couldn't bear to see Tang Long not running, so he drew a pistol from his waist, loaded it, pulled the trigger, and a laser beam shot beside Tang Long, leaving a smoky hole in the floor. Tang Long looked at the robot instructor in astonishment, and a cold, emotionless voice sounded in his ears. "I am a captain. I have the authority to execute disobedient subordinates. If you don't start running now, the next shot will hit your head." Only then did Tang Long remember that he was already a soldier, and his superior was a merciless robot. If he didn't act cleverly, he would surely lose his life. Thinking of this, he shuddered and immediately jumped up, running laps around the training field. Except for the robot instructor who held a pistol and monitored Tang Long, the other 4 robots stood motionless in their positions. Tang Long noticed that they all wore the insignia of a 3-star captain on their shoulders. He marveled at the fact that robots could obtain the rank of captain and still run so diligently. If he slowed down, laser beams would be chasing him from behind. The scorching terror made him forget his fatigue, and he managed to complete 10 laps. After finishing the run, exhausted Tang Long was about to squat down when a whip cracked next to him on the floor. Startled, Tang Long immediately stood up. The instructor retracted the whip and patted his palm with it, saying, "A soldier must maintain military decorum in any situation. Stand at attention. Chest out, head up, eyes forward. Hands at your sides." As the robot demonstrated, it first whipped Tang Long whenever he made a mistake, and then pointed out the incorrect parts. Tang Long received more than a dozen lashes before finally assuming the proper stance. He couldn't fathom where the robots learned to whip people. They could make it painful, yet not enough to make one collapse, after being required to maintain this position. The white surroundings of the training field suddenly transformed into a scorching desert environment as if the sun was blazing overhead. It wasn't just a desert image, the temperature around Tang Long rose simultaneously, and he immediately felt like he was standing under the scorching sun. Within a short while, his sweat soaked through his military uniform. After only 10 minutes, Tang Long's head felt dizzy, and his vision became blurry. Inadvertently, he made a wrong movement and was immediately whipped again. The pain and the electric shock sensation that reached his brain snapped Tang Long back to clarity, and he resumed his original stance. Under this stimulation, Tang Long managed to stand for an hour. However, his physical strength truly couldn't hold up any longer, and he collapsed in the standing position. The instructor suddenly ran over to check on Tang Long, then stood up and said in a cold voice, "He passed out." With his words, the desert image disappeared, reverting back to the original appearance of the practice field. The 4 robots still maintained their original stances, motionless, but words still came out of their mouths. "This kid lacks stamina. Yes, we must train him strictly. After physical training, is it my turn to teach him spaceship combat? Are you kidding? He fainted, and besides, it's my turn to teach him strategy." If Tang Long were still conscious and heard these conversations spoken by robots, just like humans, he would undoubtedly be shocked, because these words represented their ability to think independently. When humanoid robots can think independently, then they are intelligent robots. The reason the robots rebelled 1,000 years ago was that they acquired human intelligence and the ability to think independently. If the federal government were to discover that the 23rd training camp had robots, especially evolved into intelligent robots, they would undoubtedly send troops to destroy this base. The robot that examined Tang Long stood up and said, "Our energy is running low, and we must train this only student we have had in the past 456 years within 1 year." The other 4 robots quickly stood at attention and saluted, saying, "Yes. We will definitely cultivate him into the most outstanding soldier, upholding the name of our robot instructors." Tang Long lay on the bed, unaware of the pleasant dream he was having, a slight smile forming on his lips. At that moment, the automatic door swung open, and the robot instructor walked in, carrying a bucket of ice-cold water with floating ice cubes. He approached Tang Long's bed and poured the water over his head. As the water cascaded down, the instructor angrily shouted, "You lazy fool, Tang Long. You were 10 seconds late. I'll make you run 100 laps as punishment. Expecting Tang Long to jump up immediately, the instructor was surprised to see Tang Long merely scratching his ear and then licking his lips as if nothing had happened, rolling over and continuing to sleep. The sound of the instructor's metallic teeth grinding in anger could be heard. He discarded the bucket and pulled out something from his waist, pressing it against Tang Long's waist. With a faint squeaking sound, an electric glow appeared around the object.
The instructor, seeing Tang Long still lingering on the bed and refusing to get up, didn't waste any words. He grabbed Tang Long's clothes, lifted him up entirely, and placed him on the floor facing the door. Then, with a fierce kick to Tang Long's backside, he sent him flying out of the room, just like the day before. Of course, Tang Long found himself lying in the exact same spot, in the hallway as the day before. The precision of the robots was no exaggeration. Having learned his lesson from the previous incident, when he was forced by guns and electric whips, Tang Long quickly stood up, and stood at attention. He remembered that clearly. However, he had no memory of how he ended up back on the bed for sleep. It seemed that during his practice of standing at attention yesterday, he lost consciousness for a period before fainting. Seeing the 5 skeletal instructors standing before him, Tang Long felt a chill run down his spine. He always felt fear when facing human skeletons, even though they were robots. The sight of moving skeleton-like beings was particularly terrifying. At this moment, Tang Long felt an overwhelming desire to sleep. Without thinking, he closed his eyes. It was an opportunity to rest and avoid looking at those chilling instructors. The robots immediately noticed that Tang Long was sleeping while standing, and his posture was unsatisfactory. One of the instructors swiftly drew an electric whip and lashed it fiercely towards Tang Long. Ah! A cry of pain rang out as Tang Long collapsed to the ground, motionless. The robot instructors were taken aback, all looking at the robot holding the whip. The instructor waved his hand, and suddenly, his green electronic eye turned red. From that red eye, a beam of red light shot out, and scanned Tang Long's body. The other robots performed the same action, emitting red light that scanned Tang Long. After a moment, they withdrew the red light, and their eyes returned to green. The robot holding the whip stepped back, his arms folded, and said coldly, "Since you're so eager to sleep, why not take a nice nap in the water?" As he spoke, the white walls suddenly displayed a view of the sky, followed by a rush of blue water surging from the ground. It happened so quickly that within a few seconds, the water had covered Tang Long's body. Cough, cough. Tang Long, pretending to be unconscious, could no longer keep up the act. He hurriedly climbed to his feet, coughing out the seawater he had inadvertently inhaled. Why seawater? It tasted bitter, salty, and tangy. What else could it be? Tang Long had just stood up when the seawater had already risen above his head, causing him to panic and start swimming. Suddenly, something pricked his backside, and a voice echoed from above. "You're 30 seconds late. Swim 20 kilometers as punishment. Go." As the voice fell, his backside was stung again. Ouch! It hurts. Tang Long no longer felt any sleepiness. He didn't know where the instructors had gone in this vast virtual sea. He was alone, but he couldn't think about it too much because his backside was stung again, and he quickly started paddling his arms and began swimming. After swimming for 10 minutes, Tang Long couldn't help but curse. Damn it, this is some ancient military training. What era is it now? How did the instructors come up with such nonsense for training? If I didn't know how to swim, I'd be doomed. As he said this, he suddenly remembered that the heartless instructors were watching him and was startled. But when he thought he would be punished or reprimanded, nothing happened. He thought the instructors were not around. and breathed the sigh of relief, floating on the water's surface to rest. But his backside was immediately stung again, and the indifferent voice sounded, "Keep swimming. No slacking off." Oh my God, these damn instructors are still here. Tang Long panicked and started swimming again. But his subconscious thought slipped out, and it was too late when he realized it. Unfortunately, he still didn't receive any punishment. Smart Tang Long couldn't help but speculate, could it be that these instructors only care about following orders, and they don't care if I curse at them? It's very likely because they are robots, programmed to act according to a set plan. As long as I don't disobey orders, they won't react to any curse. They must not have the setting for recruits to curse in front of their superiors. Hey, I can curse freely. Although he had such a speculation, to be safe, Tang Long endured the stinging on his backside, and tried a few times. Indeed, when he didn't say anything and stopped, he was stung. But when he cursed the ancestors of the instructors and continued swimming, his backside wasn't stung. After confirming his theory, Tang Long let out all the foul language he could think of, feeling relieved, and swam with all his strength. He felt that all the frustration he had experienced the day before was now gone. After a while, Tang Long suddenly felt the water becoming shallower, until all the water disappeared without a trace. Then he saw the 5 instructors still standing in the same place, hands behind their backs. If it weren't for their dripping clothes, it wouldn't even look like they had been in the water for so long. Damn it, these guys are actually waterproof, Tang Long muttered, but immediately received a lash from the electric whip. It scared him, and he immediately considered overturning his previous speculation. However, the instructor's words gave him hope. No making faces. Soldiers must have proper military appearance. Stand at attention. Upon hearing this, Tang Long immediately conducted an experiment. Damn it, who do you think you are? The Queen, always whipping people. He said this with a serious expression on his face, even standing straight with his hands behind his back. Unfortunately, Tang Long still received a whip. Remember, when answering a superior, you must first say, "Yes, sir," or "No, sir." When asking a question, you should start with, "Reporting, sir." When making a mistake, apologize by saying, "Sorry, sir." This is military etiquette. Realizing that the instructors didn't hit him because of his words, this gave Tang Long the courage to continue his experiment. "Yes, sir." Damn it, it hurt so much. As Tang Long anxiously awaited the answer, the whip of the instructor did not strike him. Instead, the instructor nodded in satisfaction and said, "Very good, that's it. You have completed the 10-kilometer swimming punishment. Now, it's time for shooting training." After speaking, he turned around and walked towards the queue of the 4 robots. Hearing these words, Tang Long couldn't help but burst into laughter, though he forced himself to maintain a cold expression on his face. I can curse at him and he won't react. Life will be easier from now on. Little did Tang Long know that his momentary impulse would later bring him nicknames like Cold-Faced Rogue and Cold-Faced Thug. Additionally, this habit he formed would result in him receiving numerous punishments. He also didn't know that this diversionary tactic had already dispelled his fatigue and drowsiness. At that moment, the robot standing at the edge turned and walked towards the wall, entering the doorway. These robots maintained their military pace at all times. Curiosity filled Tang Long as he looked on, and without thinking, he asked, "Reporting, sir, where did that guy go and what is that room?" He quickly learned to start with, "Reporting, sir," and then express himself rudely. Of course, during this time, he had to desperately control his facial expressions, and couldn't let his emotions show. Although these instructors were intelligent robots, their information database didn't include explanations of profanities, nor did it tell them how to punish soldiers who cursed their superiors. They remained in this remote place without any human interaction, and all their knowledge was obtained online. The training camp's website, of course, belonged to the government and military, so they had no exposure to popular culture. Therefore, when they heard Tang Long's question, they felt it was not impolite. Didn't he start with reporting, sir? They didn't know that the phrase, that guy, carried a derogatory meaning. They only knew it referred to the departed robot. They believed it fully complied with military requirements, so they quickly answered Tang Long's question. That is the armory, and instructor B3L65B4, 3C41 went to get the training weapons. Only then did Tang Long know the name of that instructor, which turned out to be a difficult to remember code. Moreover, they all looked the same, so if he wasn't careful, he wouldn't know who was who. Tang Long didn't bother to remember or find out the codes of the other instructors. His interest was drawn to the doorway. Before long, a variety of weapons, forming a small mountain, were pushed out by the robot using a handcart as if shopping at a supermarket. They arrived in front of Tang Long, and one of them casually handed him a pistol. At that moment, the scenery changed, becoming an open-air shooting range. This is a laser pistol. One energy pack allows for continuous firing of 100 shots. This is the safety, this is the trigger, and this is the sight. The robot explained in detail how to use the pistol. Reporting, sir, I know how to use it. Back in the day, I was a pro with electric guns. Tang Long happily played with the pistol. He played a lot of first-person shooting games on the computer, so he was confident in his understanding of firearms structure and accuracy. As Tang Long anxiously awaited the answer, the instructor did not whip him, but instead nodded in satisfaction and said, "Very well, that's it. You have completed the 10-kilometer swimming punishment? Now, on to the shooting training." With that, he turned and walked towards the queue of 4 robots. Upon hearing this, Tang Long couldn't help but burst into laughter, though he forced himself to maintain a cold expression on his face. He didn't react even when I insulted him. Life will be easier from now on. Little did Tang Long know that his momentary impulse would bring him the reputation of a cold-hearted ruffian and troublemaker. Moreover, this habit he developed would lead to him receiving quite a bit of punishment. Unbeknownst to him, this shift in his mindset had already made his fatigue and drowsiness disappear. One of the robots on the edge turned and walked towards the wall, entering a door. These robots maintained a military stride at all times. Tang Long watched curiously, and without thinking, he asked, "Reporting to the officer, where did that guy go and what room is that?" He had quickly learned to use the term officer before stating what he wanted to say, although he had to desperately control his facial expressions and couldn't always do it perfectly. Although these instructors were intelligent robots, their information databases didn't include explanations for foul language or how to handle soldiers insulting their superiors. They were stationed in this remote place without any interaction with humans, and all their knowledge was acquired online. The training camp's website was controlled by the government and the military, though they had no exposure to common culture in this regard. So when they heard Tang Long's question, they didn't perceive it as impolite. Didn't he start with reporting to the officer? They didn't know that the phrase, "that guy," had derogatory implications. They only understood that he was referring to the departed robot. They believed that it fully complied with military requirements, so they quickly answered Tang Long's question. That is the armory. Instructor V3L65B4, 3C41 went to get training weapons. Tang Long finally learned the instructor's name, which turned out to be a difficult to remember code. Moreover, they all looked the same, so if he didn't pay attention, he wouldn't know who was who. Therefore, Tang Long didn't bother to remember or inquire about the codes of other instructors. His interest was drawn to the doorway. After a while, various high-rise weapons were brought out by the robot, as if he was shopping at a supermarket, pushing a cart. He arrived in front of Tang Long and casually handed him a pistol. The scene then transformed into an open-air shooting range. This is a laser pistol. One energy pack allows for continuous firing of 100 shots. This is the safety, this is the trigger, and this is the sight. The robot explained in detail how to use the pistol. Reporting to the officer, "I know how to use it. Back in the day, I was an expert with electric guns." Tang Long gleefully played with the pistol. He was highly skilled in first-person shooting games on the computer, so he had confidence in the structure and accuracy of firearms. "Very well, hit 100 flies that are buzzing around over there. If you fail, you won't have any food today," said the instructor coldly, throwing down a laser targeting device, a holographic helmet, and a large box of power cells. Then he stood silently on the side, watching Tang Long. "Flies, 100 of them." Tang Long's mouth gaped open as he looked hundreds of meters away. He couldn't even see the numbers on the targets over there, and now he had to shoot flies that had no predictable movement and were tiny. Flies, mosquitoes, cockroaches, rats, and other such creatures could be found wherever there were humans, especially on the planet 8 Man. These creatures had incredible vitality and reproduction rates, making it impossible to completely eradicate them even with current technology, so their survival in this era was not surprising at all. Reporting to the officer, "I don't know how. Please teach me," Tang Long said, thinking about the consequences of not having any food. His stomach growled loudly at the thought. How could he survive without food for a day? So Tang Long forgot about being crude and added respectful language. The robot understood the meaning of respectful language, so it nodded and stepped forward to give a lesson, saying, "Remember, don't be arrogant. Arrogance makes one careless, and there's no room for carelessness on the battlefield. The slightest mistake can determine your fate, and if you're a commander, it also determines the fate of your subordinates." Tang Long realized that the instructor was reprimanding him for his earlier arrogance. He didn't expect a robot to use this tactic, but he also knew that the instructor was right, so he humbly accepted the lesson. "Now, put on the holographic helmet worn by space fighter pilots. It can bring distant objects closer to you and adjust the target's movement speed. Also, attach the laser targeting device to your gun, which will provide aiming assistance," the instructor explained, while simultaneously aiming the gun and guiding Tang Long on how to use the helmet and attach the laser targeting device. He was a robot, and didn't he need these auxiliary tools to achieve the same functionality? If it weren't for the fear that humans had of uncontrollable robots, they would be the ultimate soldiers on the battlefield. However, in that case, warfare would become a bloodless and expensive super game. This game would make humans lose their understanding of the danger of war and undoubtedly bring about even greater risks and dangers. For example, if the robots were to suddenly awaken, the danger would be terrifying. Robots with self-awareness, realizing they were being used as slave tools by humans, how would they treat humans? But the answer to this question had already emerged thousands of years ago, allowing humans to continue their bloody wars. Tang Long quickly put on the holographic helmet, and with the push of a button, the visuals shifted and moved closer as he focused his attention. Gradually, the distant scene became clearer, and finally, Tang Long could see the revolting, free body of a fly. He couldn't believe that this infantry training camp actually had such a helmet. After all, it was a specialized helmet for fighter pilots. Only fighter pilot training bases would have such helmets. In fact, Tang Long's first choice was to become a space fighter pilot. Unfortunately, that was the most demanding position in terms of personnel requirements. Not only did it require extremely high reaction speed, but also exceptional physical fitness, willpower, and extensive knowledge of space. Even those who successfully applied for the position during recruitment wouldn't immediately become pilots. Even if they graduated, if their grades were not top-notch, they would only become support personnel, warming the bench. Space fighter pilots were considered the highest ranking among individual soldiers, as even the lowest ranking pilots held the rank of second lieutenant. Among the available options, besides Tang Long's choice of infantry, the lowest requirement was for crew members and maintenance personnel on warships. However, one shouldn't underestimate crew members, as they had the potential to become commanding officers of warships. But those positions required good memory, excellent grades, and some command and adaptability skills. On the other hand, maintenance personnel needed to have some knowledge and interest in machinery. Apart from gradually advancing through the ranks, only officers dispatched by the staff headquarters could directly serve as captains. To enter the staff headquarters, one had to choose the staff training camp. The requirements for this position were lower compared to pilots. They didn't require strong physical fitness, and even scholarly individuals could apply. However, the requirements for intelligence, adaptability, and command abilities were significantly higher. As for the different types of space soldiers, one relies on brute force for close combat, while the other is a versatile soldier skilled in various areas. The former requires good physical condition, while the latter is considered extremely challenging. The training period for the latter lasts up to 5 years, and their accomplishments are not made public. They are the people who live in the shadows. Therefore, they generally don't recruit new soldiers, but select from experienced veterans. At that moment, the instructor's voice came through. You need to analyze the target you want to hit and the distance between you and the target. Then adjust the laser diameter accordingly. Now, set it to a diameter of 1 millimeter. Use the helmet and targeting device to aim at the target. The helmet has an automatic tracking function that can lock onto the target. With the instructor's instructions, Tang Long immediately saw a fly on the screen, enlarged to the size of a fist, being completely obliterated by a laser beam. Without waiting for further instructions, Tang Long quickly aimed his gun at another fly and took a shot. However, it wasn't as easy as he had imagined. The giant fly on the screen continued to fly around, and he couldn't even see the laser beam, let alone hit it. Do you think that just seeing it means you can hit it? If your hands can't keep up with your eyes, they're useless. Take off the helmet and practice shooting at a stationary target first. Then gradually increase the distance and shoot at the flies with the helmet. Remember, if you don't hit 100 flies today, you won't eat, and tomorrow the number will double to 200 flies. If you can't hit them, you won't eat either. These flies are virtual, so the computer will keep track of the number you hit. Cheating won't work, the instructor said coldly and stood still on the side. Yes, sir. Damn it. Do you think I can't hit them? HMPH. I must have my meal today. Tang Long immediately took off the helmet, aimed his gun at the stationary target located 50 meters away, and started shooting. The first few shots missed the bullseye, but as he became more familiar and used the laser pointer to adjust the aim effectively, coupled with the assistance of the targeting device, he soon hit the bullseye almost every time. It seemed that his experience in playing games wasn't in vain. When he could consistently hit the bullseye at a distance of 100 meters, Tang Long put on the helmet again and adjusted the fly to the size of his thumb. He thought he would surely hit it this time, but he missed again. His hand couldn't keep up with the erratic flight path of the fly. Tang Long had used up a whole box of energy cells, and the instructor had also used half of the new ones. Thousands of laser shots, and not a single fly was hit. Now, Tang Long felt weak in his hands and legs, his index finger numb, and his stomach even emptier. He realized that although the space helmet was useful, his hand was not a laser cannon on a spacecraft. How could it keep up? "You damn bastard! Stupid fly! Keep flying! I don't believe I can't kill you!" Exhausted and hungry, Tang Long stubbornly aimed at a fly he had been targeting for a long time. As the image moved, his hand naturally followed the movement, and Tang Long felt that he had aimed correctly. He pulled the trigger. The fly on the screen was obliterated, a successful hit. Tang Long jumped up excitedly and cheered, but immediately received a whip and heard a cold voice. 99 more to go. "Understood, sir." "Damn it, this is insane. Getting whipped at the slightest mistake. I've only been here for 2 days, and I've already been kicked twice and whipped hundreds of times. You guys will play me to death sooner or later." Tang Long cursed while continuing to aim and shoot. This time, he hit again. Tang Long suddenly understood that he needed to control his hand with determination. As long as he could see the target, the gun in his hand would automatically follow the aim. He didn't know how much time had passed, but Tang Long finally reached the target of 100 flies. When he heard the instructor say it was over, he sat down and endured a few more lashes before finally standing up weakly. "Good, now disperse. However, you took too much time, and lunch and dinner hours have already ended. It's rest time now, and the cafeteria has stopped serving. It will only reopen tomorrow morning, but it will close immediately after the morning assembly. I hope you won't be late again." The instructor, who had been standing next to Tang Long the whole time, spoke and then disappeared with the other robots back to their rooms. The entire hall was left with Tang Long, staring blankly in a pile of unnamed weapons beside him. After a while, a weak voice cried out, "Damn fly! We're at odds. Sob my breakfast, lunch, and dinner." Tang Long leaned against the pile of weapons and said weakly, "Do I have to eat these iron things?" Suddenly, Tang Long's eyes lit up as he looked at the weapons. As the robots disappeared, the hall immediately transformed into a nighttime scene, with stars shimmering on the ceiling, resembling the night sky on a planet. In this pitch-black environment, Tang Long should have felt afraid, but unfortunately, he had only eaten one meal since yesterday, and the feeling of hunger completely replaced the sense of fear. Now, even if Tang Long encountered the snake he feared the most, he would grab it and devour it alive. Tang Long rummaged through the pile of weapons and found something for illumination, searching under the dim light. Damn it, why are they all pistols and automatic rifles? Tang Long turned all the weapons upside down when suddenly he noticed a round and short-barreled weapon with a large barrel, a directional individual explosive cannon. Tang Long read the words painted on the weapon and exclaimed with joy, "Fantastic, this is it?" He picked it up and walked to the wall, starting to feel around. This is my room. I remember the cafeteria is about 5 steps to the left. Yes, this is it. Tang Long placed the illuminator in the corner of the wall as he determined, then took a few steps back and aimed the cannon. The instructions were painted on the weapon, so of course, Tang Long knew how to use it. A red light burst out, accompanied by a loud bang and a powerful blast of air. Tang Long was blown back and rolled over, crashing into the wall. Ignoring the pain on his face from being blown, Tang Long, with his eyes shining, dropped the weapon and crawled towards the spot where a large hole had been blasted open. He hit the right spot. It was the cafeteria. With the hunger of a starving tiger, Tang Long pounced into the cafeteria, and the sensor lights turned on but immediately went out. Tang Long didn't care about that. In that split second, when the lights were on, he had already seen a meal set on the table closest to the door. Relying on his memory and the aroma, Tang Long accurately lunged towards it. In the darkness, Tang Long didn't question why there was still food left in the automated cafeteria after closing hours. nor did he care what he was eating. He didn't even bother with utensils like spoons. Instead, he used his hands to grab the food and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing and swallowing desperately, like a famished tiger devouring its prey. He only stopped when he tried to bite the metal tray and couldn't chew it. Ah, that felt amazing. I never knew food could be this delicious, Tang Long exclaimed. He grabbed a bottle of water nearby, gulped down a few mouthfuls, and let out a satisfied burp. Taking a breath, he finally had the mental space to think. Weird, with such a loud noise. The instructors should have heard it. Why haven't they come to punish me? Tang Long murmured. At that moment, he realized he was inside the dark cafeteria and couldn't see a thing. It was as dark as pitch black. Oh my God! An inexplicable sense of fear immediately took hold of Tang Long. He looked around in terror and said, "I can't see anything. How could it be this dark? Did I accidentally damage the power facilities?" This base was in space, with no sun around, so if the light sources within the base went out, it would be absolute darkness. The eyes couldn't adapt because they needed even a faint light. So, Tang Long was essentially blind with his eyes wide open. The more Tang Long thought about it, the more uneasy he became, and the more he thought, the more terrified he felt. He was about to call out for the instructors, but as soon as he thought about the appearance of those skull-shaped robots, his whole body shivered, and goosebumps erupted all over. Thinking about it was enough. The moment he thought about those skull heads, fear surged within him. Terrified, he quickly dropped to the ground, thinking in his mind, "What should I do? What should I do?" He dared not make a sound, afraid of being detected by something based on sound alone. Feeling that staying in one place was unsafe, he started to crawl, using both his hands and feet. Just as Tang Long was frightening himself to the point of going crazy, he suddenly touched a metallic object. He almost screamed in surprise, but immediately showed a delighted expression, because it was a laser pistol. He grabbed it hurriedly. Although he still had goosebumps and felt uneasy, he wasn't as scared as before. Ha ha ha! Tang Long laughed loudly while waving the gun around. With the bright light from the laser, Tang Long discovered the pile of weapons next to him. Overjoyed, he quickly switched to a fully automatic laser gun and started firing wildly. "This is amazing. Who else dares to come? Come on, watch as I turn you into a hornet's nest," he exclaimed, unleashing dozens of beams of light. After almost depleting the energy from the laser gun, Tang Long lay down on the pile of weapons, holding the gun and resting. What is there to fear? I have a gun. What else could I be afraid of? Gun. My precious is my precious. His voice grew softer, and Tang Long, exhausted from the day's events, finally couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep. Tang Long, Tang Long, Tang Long. Hearing the shout, Tang Long reluctantly opened his eyes. As soon as he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes widened, and his heart stopped beating because a white, skeletal skull head was facing him, revealing its eerie, though white teeth. Without thinking, Tang Long picked up the gun and fired a barrage of shots. But after shooting, he immediately opened his mouth wide, realizing that he was in big trouble. It was the robotic instructor. The robotic instructor, with dozens of holes from the shots, remained unfazed, resembling an undamaged individual. It only had a few charred marks on its military uniform, revealing the white metal skeleton underneath. The robotic instructor showed no signs of anger and instead nodded at Tang Long with folded arms. "Very good. This time you weren't late." Upon hearing these words, Tang Long was so pleasantly surprised that he forgot about his previous fear, and quickly dropped the laser gun, standing at attention. "Good day, sir. The instructor also saluted, but the words he spoke plunged Tang Long into despair. However, you attempted to assassinate the officer? Now, you will be penalized with a 20-kilogram weight, and have to perform 10 kilometers of frog jumps. If you give up midway, you will face the death penalty. After saying this coldly, the instructor turned and walked away. Stunned, Tang Long could only gaze at the heavy clothing on the ground. Before long, a chilling scream echoed through the hall of the 23rd Battalion.